Many marketing teams struggle with leveraging data to achieve tangible business outcomes. They're caught up in the cycle of analysis paralysis or even end up looking at data that doesn't really drive growth. A lot of it comes down to having the right strategy, understanding what the goals are, and making sense of the data. So how can B2B marketers measure what counts and leverage actionable metrics that drive profit? Welcome to this episode of the B2B Marketers in the Mission podcast, and I'm your host, Christian Klepp. Today, I'll be talking to Kenny Ridgell, who will be answering this question. He's the founder of Ridge Media LLC that aims to overcome the digital marketing chaos. Tune in to find out more about what this B2B marketer's mission is. Off we go. Mr. Kenny Ridgell, welcome to the show, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Christian. Happy to be here.
Man, it's great to have you on the show. We had a fantastic pre-interview conversation where we're talking about fatherhood and crying babies and sleep deprivation and all that good stuff, right?
All the fun stuff that everyone has to either look forward to or reminisce upon.
Yeah. Or they look back at it and go, yeah, I'm glad that's passed. I'm glad that ship has sailed, right?
Exactly. Either reminiscing upon the lack of sleep or looking forward to the lack of sleep. And nothing can prepare you.
Exactly. Or the comments like, oh yeah, I remember those days.
Right? Exactly. It's like, I don't even remember how bad it was like 6 months ago. I think part of it is that amnesia that occurs. It's like, oh, it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's a bit of a brain fog, right?
Exactly.
Great, Kenny. But moving on now from fatherhood to B2B marketing, man, I'm really looking forward to this conversation because let's be honest, it's a conversation that I think is something that needs to be had within an organization in order to drive that success. So what am I talking about, ladies and gentlemen? Well, let's just dive right in. Okay. So you're on a mission to simplify marketing analytics where you assist founders and CEOs in leveraging data for evidence-based decisions that drive revenue. I hope I got that right. But for this conversation, let's zero in on this topic: how to measure what counts and leverage actionable metrics to drive profit. Now, people are probably thinking, like, measure what counts. Wonder what that means. But let's kick off the conversation with two questions here, okay? And I'm happy to repeat them. Why do you think so many marketing teams struggle with using data to achieve tangible business outcomes? And what do you think is the root cause of these issues?
I'll go inverse. I'll start with the second question first. I think the root cause kind of stems from like a lack of understanding truly the industry or the business that you're talking to. And what is the sales cycle? Like, how long does it take to get the close? What does the conversation and process look like? I mean, at the end of the day, if you take a manufacturer versus the landscaper, right? You're going to have a landscaping like visit. You're going to audit the property. You're going to come back with a proposal pretty quickly. It's going to be brief. You might be able to close within like, a week to 3 weeks, max maybe 6. Whereas a manufacturing opportunity, a lot of times, like say somebody's coming in, they're building something custom. There's going to be engineers involved. There's going to be spec involved. There's going to be multiple site visits involved. It's probably a year-long to 2-year-long buying process before they actually purchase that equipment. I think the wrong thing that people can get obsessed with is the incorrect metric from that, right? So take impressions, for example. I call marketing a lot of times smoke and mirrors. Because I think a lot of people can do it with song and dance. They can do like the pony show. But at the end of the day, what actually matters to this business owner? Money in their pocket. So if you back it up and like reverse engineer the situation, the manufacturer, take that, for example. How many eyeballs actually quantify of like a quality buyer? There's probably only a limited pool of people who are going to be buying this. You should not be measuring impressions as like one of your like, okay, we got 100,000 impressions. There's probably not 100,000 people that are actively shopping for that piece of equipment at all. You don't need to be looking at that. It needs to be much more like of a less of a shotgun approach and more of a rifle specific. And I think the old adage of throwing the spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks, that may work in like a B2C or retail type of situation, but in B2B, it's cutthroat. You've got competitors who either like, in front of your customer already and they're already working with them, or they're courting your customer right now. So you got to be apt, you got to be quick, you got to be agile, and you got to really make sure that you're telling the story directly to these people and not just measuring oh, well, what was their engagement? Did they come to my site and spend a lot of time on there? It's no, it's like, what page did they spend a lot of time on? How can we feed that type of information back to our sales team through the CRM? How can we like connect the data? I think a lot of times in the B2B world, there's just a disconnect between what your sales team and their like your CRM is telling you and the updated refresh data versus what you're learning on the other end. You need to be trying to understand this customer user journey. So we take Christian as like a prospective buyer. He looks at a Google ad. We now know that he has a device ID tag. He's going to our LinkedIn. He's going to our website. We already have him on our CRM. His emails there. He finally calls in, off of a meta ad. Okay, well, did Christian come from Facebook because that was the last place he saw, or was it the entire user journey that mattered? What steps did it take? The full cost isn't the cost per click on Meta. The full cost is the Google cost per click, the cost of the SEO campaign to find it again, the cost of your LinkedIn campaign, your email marketing drip, your sales guy who touched on it again before he came to Meta. And you want to know that whole pathway, and then you got to understand, like, what could we have done to maybe shorten the pathway so it's not as expensive. And then number two, how can we repeat that pathway for a future prospective customer? Because this is someone who found us, walked through the whole path, and then delivered. And you've got to make sure you connect the dots all the way through the journey, or else you're missing out. Say we could have said, oh, Meta was the best play here. Well, at the end of the day, without the other pieces of lineage, they would never have made it to Meta. They probably never made it to the purchasing decision. That might have just been like the straw that broke the camel's back. So, to answer your second question first, I think the problem is that people focus on the wrong. They focus on the wrong basically analytics, and then they through that focus on the wrong channels and trying to focus on the wrong metrics. And at the end of the day, what people need to be focusing on is customer profile data and connecting your sales team to your marketing team.
Absolutely, absolutely. So going to that first question, like why do so many teams struggle with using data? I guess a big part of it is like what you said. It's just the failure to understand who they're targeting, where they're coming from, and do you feel a big part of it? At least I've seen this in my experience. People tend to like overcomplicate things when it comes to data analysis.
Yeah, we always say be more direct with your data and simplify. And I think direct is their number one key, because some people can just, they talk in these like airy ideas, kind of like, you can hear multiple sales pitches now from Instagram that come to mind, where it's like, I even sell this stuff, but I don't really understand what he's talking about. It's like, because I think some people want to just like overcomplicate it, make it sound more dense than it needs to be. And I think at the end of the day, tracking too many things is part of the problem. Like whenever we hire new media buyers, we always talk about, they'll set up their conversion tracking, for example, and they'll track like, oh, 5 to 6 different things as conversions. Like a website click is a conversion. Going to the contact us page is a conversion. Like, no. Let's get back to the root of it. What is a true conversion? What do we add that value to? And then let's try and focus on the proper metrics. Of course, tracking everything is good, but focusing your conversions on just what are contact points, especially in B2B marketing, who filled out a form and who called us. Most importantly, anything else is not valuable. And then taking it one step further with a program like CallRail, you can actually record the call, and you can make sure that the length of the call is good. So we actually have somebody manually go back and listen to these calls. At the end of the day, you can hire a virtual assistant for your team. You can plug in CallRail for like $100 a month, probably over $1,000 total cost all in. You can have a call recording system. You can have a person who's monitoring all the calls, giving you true feedback. And then at the end of the day, you export that data to your CRM. Here are our good calls. Here's their phone number and their emails and their names. You send it to your CRM, put it in a chat GPT or an AI tool, and you basically like compare your CRM and who closed versus your calls. Okay, now we see which ones overlap, and you're truly like connecting the data. It takes a little bit of manual work, but somebody listening to all these calls, giving their phone number and their names, and then using your CRM to basically connect the data and pipeline shows you what your ROI is. And I think if you don't do that last step, then a lot of times we think, oh, we're getting a lot of good calls. And then you look down at how much ROI actually came from it. Even if they're talking on the phone to 2-3 minutes, they were shopping. They didn't have the budget. We're concepting. We're a year out from buying. You might actually not be getting quality calls, even if the calls are just long. So you've got to take the extra step of manually listening to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's amazing what you can do with technology these days. I remember back then when we were working together with sales, and there wasn't that technology didn't quite exist yet where you can record the sales calls and then give that like feedback, so called, right? Like, and it was very easy for people to just bluff their way through it, right? Like, oh yeah, they weren't interested, or they're very they were very demanding, or things of that nature. But then so it's hard to tell like whether the person's telling the truth or not, right? So
Exactly. It cuts through the fluff, yeah, if you have that direct recording. And honestly, at the end of the day, it ties into where you end up being like a sales consultant because you're like, we might need a script for your team, or maybe you should stop answering the phone. I mean, we have some people like where it's like, they just had a dial tone going and it would just go to the next person in the company until somebody answers. So it always end up in the owner's hands. He'd be like, yeah, out in the field. Hello, like, yeah, it's like, sir, I think you need to have a team around you to help answer you the phone. You're a multi-million-dollar business. It's time to step back from your phone lines.
I think so. I think so. I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, Kenny. Like, how can marketers leverage all this, all this vast amount of data that they're collecting to help them understand the buyer's journey better? Because that can be at times a tricky piece of work.
Yeah, you've got to find a couple tools that talk to each other.
Right.
And I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's probably the hardest thing to do in today's market is determining what software program to buy. I would say right now that CallRail is pretty much the biggest component to what we do because it does allow you to do that form tracking. It does integrate directly into your like call recording capabilities, and it actually has an AI transcriber that will transcribe the notes and qualify the leads, good or bad, and it's reasonably cost. And it actually ties in a majority of CRMs. So a lot of that like manual pieces can be done. So we use Go High Level. And at the end of the day, I think it's a company like that where it's one singular dashboard. You're placing all of your information, both your CRM, your email marketing, everything's tied in through there. You can actually layer in a program called like a Pearl Diver. So as soon as you get people who are actually typing in, like it does a website identifier. So based on keywords or competitors or searches, you can get their phone number and their email. And you can just create like a cycle or a system where it goes back to it. Like, so like basically I would get Christian's email because he typed in marketing Greenville, South Carolina. I would get populated into my CRM. Our CRM is going to automatically start dripping him emails. And then CallRail is going to record when he calls in, hopefully. And then when it ties the two together. But I think the main thing is making sure you choose a couple robust systems. I think fragmented approaches are outdated and it's too hard to make the programs talk to each other. You've got to find one or two programs that can do a lot of what you're looking for. So the more programs, I mean, we've been there as a company and there's no shame in that. We've had like 5 or 6 programs and you're like trying to build Frankenstein online. And you're like, Frankenstein works about like Frankenstein. It's slow, it's clunky, it doesn't really work. Of course, it takes investment and time to get to that level, but once you make the step and investment into the true proper software, hiring the professional to set it up, once you have the system, it's unbelievable the amount of clockwork they can do for you. But I think too many people are cheap on the front end. They like kind of like piecemeal it together, and then they start like just sticking new things on top instead of just saying, "All right, we got to scratch this and go back to the square one."
Yeah, exactly. And once they do that, then they start yelling, "It's alive!" Right?
Exactly.
Fantastic. I'm going to move us on to the next question about key pitfalls. And you've mentioned some of them already, but like key pitfalls that B2B marketers need to avoid, and what should they be doing instead?
I think social media is a huge key pitfall that a lot of B2B people fall into the trap of. Unless you know your customer 100% as a buyer that's going to be on social media, think that there's a time and a place to invest that energy and resources onto other channels. I mean, you got streaming capabilities, you got display campaigns, you got native ads, you got, I mean, even radio, I would think would work better because you're doing more of a one-to-one approach. I would not recommend doing that's social media goes back to like it's a lot of time to create all your strategy. A lot of it's not going to be directly relevant to your customer because I mean, how many times can you post about the same product over and over again? For even if you have a vast line of, to, like say, your manufacturer, you have like we have 5,000 products. Well, what product do you feature on your social media? Well, how do you like highlight that individual? And I think so many people get obsessed with like, well, we need to be on social media. We got to be on social media. And that is a big mistake for B2B companies. I think LinkedIn is a good place for you to, I think it's one of those platforms where you can be on there. You can be more of a thought leader. You can create yourself as an expert, but it's not great to be on some of the other social media platforms. And I see that like resource waste heavily. I mean, I just met with a manufacturer the other day in Australia. and he's heavy leveraged into meta ads, and he's getting a lot of leads, but they're not a lot of quality leads. And he's like, look, now my problem is I have 2,000 leads, and I only have like 20 of these people are going to buy this year. I know based on my facts of how much, how many sales we're going to have, 12 to 30. So I've got 2,000 people I got to filter through. How do I get? And so he made his form longer and longer, right? He's like, I'm like, well, at the end of the day, your form might stop some people that also may be qualified leader buyers because they don't want to have to fill out this extremely lengthy form. So, but he's obsessed with meta. And I'm like, I get that there's a time and place and you don't want to back away from it, but the amount that you're investing there, it can go so much further for you if you can be very specific about who these people are and leveraging this across other networks. I mean, take LinkedIn, for example, just buy ads there on there to strictly job titles and people in certain locations, and you're going to have a better result than just going on Facebook and doing it interest based. Because I mean, Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, they're all interest based. They're not title based, or they're not profession based. So it's a whole different algorithm.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. Talk to us about the importance. I mean, like, I know you know that it's important, but talk to us about why it's crucial to have the right strategy and approach to leverage actionable metrics and data, and why you shouldn't just wing it, right?
I've, I have one of my favorite customer stories from a guy that I met a while ago that I would know he would hate this. He laughs at it now, but he said that, every year he would he managed his own ads. So but he was just trying and starting and stopping old campaigns within weeks, so he was like, I'd A/B test and I'd do it over like 4 or 5 days. And at the end of the day, he used probably every bell and whistle on Meta. He used every bell and whistle on Microsoft, on Bing, on Google. And he was like, I don't think any of it works. I tried it all. And I went back and read all of it. And he was just starting and stopping campaigns every week or two. And I'm like, at the end of the day, one of my favorite stories for that is just be patient with this stuff. It's not like I always say, it's not Field of the Dreams. You can't just build it and they will come. Like you got to really fine tune it. You got to spend your time diligently looking through it. And I do think there's sometimes a place of like just a little bit of patience goes a long way in this game, because I mean it's all experimentation, right? It's a game. We're gamifying an entire like a marketing experience and exposure, but making sure that you're playing the game with patience. It's not like you're going to step in the batter's box in a baseball game and hit a home run the first time. Like you got to take some batting practice, get warmed up.
Absolutely, absolutely. Reminds me of a client we worked with about 2 years ago in the home furnishing industry. So things like window shutters, for example, right? And we were launching a campaign for him. A week later, he goes, "I have no web traffic." I'm like, "Well, it's only been a week." You know what I mean? Like, did you expect us to, like, you switch it on and then suddenly people are like flocking to your like showroom? I mean, like, it doesn't work that way, right?
Yeah. It's not a fire. I heard my favorite quote for that is a guy spoke in my MBA class who ran a big agency called Brains on Fire, and he said that Clemson MBA came to him and they said, "Look, we'd like to make an announcement about opening up an MBA school in downtown. We have a $5,000 budget." And he looked at him dead in the face to the dean and he said, "If all you have is $5,000, you need to go buy a wagon, get the remaining cash in $1 bills, pour gasoline on it, and push it down Main Street. That's gonna be the best press you can get for your $5,000."
Oh, I am pretty sure they did not they did not appreciate that answer.
The best part is I heard this at the MBA
Hmm.
school. They had that guy come back and speak, and I was like, I'm surprised they even let you come back and speak.
They probably realized he was right.
Yeah, exactly. They
Yeah.
didn't push the cart down Main Street, but they should have.
Yeah, they probably should have. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right. So, Kenny, based on your experience and also based on all the things that we've been talking about in the past couple of minutes, how can B2B marketers leverage this data and also hopefully a bit of creativity and strategy to achieve these tangible business outcomes? So, how can they be more creative in their approach? Because I think that's important too. And what are the key steps that they need to take? Just walk us through that.
I would say one of the biggest things is going to different industry trade shows outside of your specific industry. So if you're trying to innovate within like, the marketing space, right? If you're a manufacturer, don't go to your manufacturing show looking for marketing innovation. Go to an ad agency show. Go to some of these hospitality shows. I mean, I think hospitality has to be very innovative in their approach. I mean, it's like some of these B2C companies, they're very, very edgy and you can take a lot from it. Like, at the end of the day, Nike might be a B2C customer, but they also has a lot of messaging and like materials that they use in their marketing that can be very impactful. So I think going outside of your industry to take some knowledge, it's almost like traveling, right? When you go to Europe and you go experience different things, you can bring back some of what you saw to your clients and to your clientele. Same idea and approach goes into your business line. Go away from your industry, go learn other thought leaders, think about what the kind of approach they're taking, and then try and see what you can bring back. But I think that, being patient, but also like having a timeline that you're comfortable spending. I always say start small, do an experimentation, do something you're comfortable, and then know that the data is value and make sure you're collecting it. Because as long as you're leveraging it, it should be a learning experience, not a failure. So, say, bring it. I always tell people like, take it a simple approach in terms of like, I think of each channel as a bucket. Let's take 3 or 4 channels or 3 or 4 buckets. Let's spend the same amount of money, even if it's $1,000 on each. Let's run an experiment for 90 days so we know we have patience. Okay, that means we're going to run, each one's $1,000 a month. You're at 4, you're at 90 days, you're at $12,000. Okay, even if you need to do that 4 more times throughout the year, you're going to spend $50,000. You're going to test all these different strategies. You're going to test all these different channels. You're going to have a general idea. And what usually happens after 90 days, you're like, one of those 4, 2 of those 4 worked. Okay, let's cancel the other 2. Let's try and spend, an equivalent amount of money on 2 new channels. And if you keep just diligently A/B testing, collecting the data and learning from what happened, I think that's the best play possible. So many people rush in there and rush out of there. Like I've seen one of my favorite campaign success stories is, we had a 90-day trial going with a client. It was day like 82. He's like, just pull the plug. We hadn't gotten anything from it. And I'm like, man, you're selling stuff that's over $100,000 a piece. If we just get one client line the next 8 days, you're not going to fire me. And we won't spend $10,000. I think he was spending like $3,000 a month. On the 87th day, he had like a $250,000 close. And he's still a client today. But I mean, we were 5 days, and I think we battled him every day during those last 5 days. But at the end of the day, once we found that one channel that worked, now we canceled other couple of channels or our other buckets. We poured the water out, poured water in a different bucket, and then tested it out methodically, scientifically approach, use the data, and then make sure it ties back to money. Because if you're not collecting the data and you're not tying it back to the money, then you don't know what's working, and you're stuck in that 50% of my marketing dollars work and 50% of my marketing dollars don't work. The problem is I don't know which 50%. That is the last place you want to be stuck, especially in today's digital age.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I agree with what you said. I'm just gonna throw this one in there because I'm pretty sure you've you've come across this situation more times than you care to count. But how do you get buy-in for what you just suggested? Like even things like, okay, let's go to a trade show that's not linked to our industry. Let's do something that's unconventional, do something that's a little bit more creative. Because I mean, let's be honest, in B2B, that can be a really tough sell. Especially, and nothing against business owners and nothing against senior management, but look, a lot of these guys don't have a marketing background. They're either somebody in finance or somebody in that's a bit more has a bit more of a technical background, and mentioning to them, okay, well, why don't we just spend money and go to a trade show that's not linked to our industry? They'll look at you like you're crazy. Right? So how do you get buy-in from that?
I would say the way that I've done it in the past was probably not the most economical, but I've just gone myself to the conferences and then brought ideas back and been like, next year you need to come. Here's some ideas and how it could apply to yours. And so in a good way, when I go, I'm kind of using myself as the guinea pig and being like, for example, I went to the trucking show this year. We were up in Louisville. I spoke at a conference related to hospitality. The trucking show was there. It was right next door. So I went over to the convention center, went to the trucking show. We do have a couple of trucking logistical clients, but I learned some different other stuff in terms of like AI agents and some CRM management and different techniques they were using to like monitor their like basically all their trucks on the road and how they're trying to get loads coming back. I
Yeah.
use that for a bunch of our home service clients. I was like, oh, that software could be cool for over here. And at the end of the day, it
Right.
was one of those things where I was able to piecemeal different concepts and bring them back. But I think the hardest part of getting management to buy in terms of thinking out of the box is you've got to get a small win somehow. So like, I mean, if as soon as you have a win or something under your belt where you can like say, look, this actually works, you have a lot more leniency from those staff members or senior management people to buy into your idea. So my one of my favorite thing is just trying to, like, that's why taking those calls, listening to them, monitoring them, finding a key win, and getting access to the data. As an agency, you've got to get access to the data. So like, I'll go through a logistical client we had. The beginning, they're like, I don't think this is working a ton. We're not seeing a ton of difference. We're not seeing how it's going. I'm like, just give me access to your Salesforce. It was a big tug and pull. I'm like, look, just let me look at your Salesforce. Set me up as a salesperson. I'll bring you a piece of business. I don't care. And so I ended up referring a couple of people to them, trying to get a business, got into their Salesforce. I was able to, like, connect the dots between, because they weren't doing the connection. So I listened to all the calls. I connected the dots. I found that 8 people in the last 30 days had actually come through our ad campaign and bought from them that had never bought from them before, one of which was like a $1.5 million client. So I came back to them, and this is a meeting a week before they're like basically firing me, saying like, this isn't working, stop it. I come back a week later and I'm like, actually in the last 30 days, you drove like $2.2 million of the business to your accounts. Mainly 1.5 of it came from this one key woman. And they're like, that lady, that came from y'all? I'm like, yes. So they went from, we're going to fire y'all, we're not seeing that big of a difference, to like, oh, the biggest piece of business we won in the last 30 days was from y'all's ad campaign. And of course, then the debate came, well, we'd actually been trying to contact that woman and we had never been able to get her business in the last 2 years. Maybe we finally just got it. I'm like, well, or maybe we helped push it over the edge. But the idea is that we win together. Like, it's not if y'all win or we win. It's like, we're selling your service and we've got to just try to, if you were walking the horse to the water, we hope they drink. Yeah, we're both trying to talk the horse into drinking. But at the end of the day, we got the horse to the water and she drank this time, and it's a really good deal. But it's funny, because they were
Absolutely.
ready just to throw the towel in. And now,
Yeah.
like, once I got a little bit of win, I was able to like
Mm.
coax them into getting a little more innovative, trying to get out of the box, like how do we do some different things. Because I would say they've always been very, very traditional in their advertisement, being
Yeah.
billboard centric, news centric. And we've been able to introduce more and more concepts in terms of automation. We've tied their CRM into a programmatic campaign now, so where,
Mm.
like, for example, if their CRM moves people through deal stages, it actually will serve them different ads. So based
Okay.
on specifically what their sales team puts it in there, say they're like, they're refrigerated trucking, or these people are automotive trucking, they're going to fall directly into an ad campaign category that's going to serve them ads specific to whatever service it is. As soon as they fall, like the sales team moves them from like, we're just a warm lead, to where like we're 75% to close or 90% to close, they're actually getting more specific ads tailored to whatever they're talking about in their notes. So the ads are set up to trigger. And if people don't open the emails, then they fall back. Or if they fall, if they start stalling, they fall back within the funnel. But it's all AI connected to where the CRM ties in and people just go, like, stage to stage to stage through. But at the end of the day, like, trying to convince the trucking industry to, hey, let's set up your CRM to automate ads to go stage by stage as your sales. But I just come in there at day one, he'd have been like, no. I'm like, what's that going to cost? And like, what's that even mean? Whereas in the beginning, we got a win, we slowly built him in, and now he's actually coming with me to a hospitality conference here soon. So at the end of the day, I'm like, we
Oh, cool.
got him. Like, he's bought in, he's looked in. But I mean, we
That's
had to get the big win first.
Yeah, yeah. No, so it's going back to what you said earlier. It's you've got to bring them some proof or evidence. Sorry, this sounds like a detective story here, but yeah, right. Like, just prove to them that it works, right? So
Exactly. Like, they
yeah,
want fact. They don't want a gut feeling. Like, that this has to, the line has to be direct.
exactly, exactly. Okay, my friend, we get to the point in the conversation where we're talking about actionable tips, and man, you have given us plenty already, right? But just imagine there is a B2B marketer out there that's listening to this conversation and you want them to take action on what you've been talking about. So, what are the 3 to 5 things that you could tell B2B marketers to do right now?
I would look into call reel, set that up on your computer. I mean, set that up on your program immediately. Try and tie it into your CRM. Maybe that's step 2. Number 3, I would try and find either a partner or get your own seat at Stack Adapt. It's the one that I talked about where it ties directly into your CRM. So it's a programmatic ad buying campaign. I think the minimum's like 1,000 or 2,000. It's not a ton. You can actually set it up to where it triggers all the CRMs. It'll do your email campaigns through there. Number 4, I would try and potentially invest in a go high level account or something along those lines, some campaign where it's going to basically pull all this data together into one dashboard to where your CRM's all linked with everything in the have going on. And then number 5, I would set aside a budget each month for experimentation. And I get if your budget's tight, it's small. I wouldn't say don't spend like $500. You're not going to get a lot of results there. But every month, just because your campaign's working now, we want 10% or carved out where this is experimentation. I would say that's the huge piece. Don't stop experimenting. Don't stop learning. If you can be the first mover, if you can get in that blue ocean strategy, then you really gonna, if you can be the first thought leader in TikTok, for example, 5 years ago as like an influencer, think about how much money that person made. As a B2B marketer, we got to be thinking the same thing. Is TikTok ads next? What is next? Is Microsoft ads next? What are the plays here? How do we get ahead? Because if we can get part of the market share on this new platform, this new technique, we can explode our business. So just keep trying, keep experimenting, go implement some different tools and start tracking a day what kind of revenue you're making.
Fantastic, fantastic. I love it. Here comes the love it or hate it question, but man, we've been talking about data, so it would be foolish for me not to bring up metrics, right? Which metrics? And I know we talked about this at the beginning of the conversation. You could go down this deep rabbit hole and just drown in this like sea of data and ubiquity and what have you. But like, what are some of the key metrics that marketers should be paying attention to?
Specifically in the B2B world, I think the key metrics that we need to be paying attention to is number of contacts in our pipeline. I think that's a huge thing. It's got to be continually refreshed. Got to be paying attention to client like detailed information. I think that's a metric that is like overlooked, and it's almost like data input equals data output. Make sure your data input is extremely clean. Number three, I'd be really focused on individually counting your calls and your forms. I think this is a huge way where you're going to be tying back in. And I would say if you monitor your revenue, a lot of times if you see your calls tick up, your forms tick up, the same percentage your revenue will typically tick up. And the last piece of like metrical advice that I would give you would be monitoring your engagement rate per page on your site. Figure out where people are bouncing off and on what pages, and keep updating and fine tuning those individual pages on your website. Maybe you have to do an e-brochure. Maybe you have to do an explainer video about the products. I know some of these products in the B2B world can be very intricate and very like detailed. Make sure that you are presenting the information to the buyer, because you only have a limited number of buyers. Once you get them on the website, once they get on that web page, if they spend less than a minute or 2 minutes on that individual like product page, you've missed something. Make sure that all your specs are there, all your details are there, any information they could possibly find. Really, 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 really deep dive into those like sessions per page engagement rates. That's like a very granular level of information, but I think that's something like that's what B2B marketers get paid to do. We're not looking at just, Coca-Cola, how many people saw our ads? We're paying attention to how many people saw this individual X, Y, or Z product. How much time do they spend on that page? Why'd they bounce? What happened? There's a program called Crazy Egg. You can actually record and see what people are doing on your website. It'll record their individual interactions. You can record just individual pages if you realize, like, hey, people are really bouncing off of this like product page. Plug CallRail in there, record that page, figure out what anybody who bounced off there, watch their sessions. If you get you like heat map a whole wave of like where they scrolled around, what they did, and it'll actually give you artificial intelligence, give you insights into like what you could do on that page or what people may or may not be looking for. It's like $79 a month. Plug CallRail in. That's like something I can't preach enough to B2B marketers. It's like, you've got to pay attention to your per page sessions.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I've heard of Crazy Eggs, so that's a good one. And I think you've mentioned Call Reel a couple of times now. Like, so definitely. Just to quickly recap: number of contacts in pipeline, client detailed info, data input and output, call and form leads, and engagement rate per page, I guess, right? So per page on the site.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Sorry, I talked pretty quick. You did good to keep up with that.
Yeah,
I'm like
yeah.
I'm the antithesis of the Southerner that talks slow.
Don't worry, we can slow the video down a little bit.
we might need to.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, breathe. Remember to breathe. It's important.
Thank goodness for video post production. All right. A status quo in your area of expertise that you passionately disagree with, and why?
It goes back to social media. I think post like quantity of post is like the status quo that I think is I'll go even further into why I dislike social media and how it could have misaligned. Take a manufacturer. They might post about birthdays. They might be posting about X, Y, or Z, and think about it from a customer perspective. You go to a trade show in like Shanghai, you meet somebody there who has this great product. All you want to do is go look at it and show somebody on your staff about this product. You go to their Facebook page. It's somebody's birthday. The next post down is like, what day for lunch? The next post down is about like their company retreat. The next post down is like, you're like, I'm just looking for a picture of the product that I was shown. And then now your Facebook is actually unhelping you sell, right? It's not helping advance your message. And so the idea is like, you don't have to post all the time just to work with the algorithm through MD. Make sure your top 4 to 5, your last post on your grid, if you want to call it that, are very, very relevant. And instead, just make sure that you're posting quality, not quantity as an individual. It's not about telling a story. You can, of course, there's a time and a place to like humanize the brand. It might be better suited in a video where you have like individual people. And you can do, I always like go back to like the old Gary Vee saying, the jab, jab, punch. So you can do a couple jabs here that are like not call to actions and then a little punch of the call to action. But I would make sure that it's customer relevant. If you think about this guy or girl who's you just met at a trade show, what are they looking to see on your social media? Make sure that's what you're posting. Don't waste the space and the time posting about something else. I think there's a status quo of like, I've got to post 4 times a week. I got to go on stories. I got to like have a presence. I got to have people. I got to show faces. Yes, yes, yes. All that is correct. But no, no, no. If you can't keep it consistently about your brand or about what you're selling, don't waste your customers' time and don't waste the space or energy resources of doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I mean, like, just posting for the sake of posting, especially about stuff that your customer potentially is not going to care about, it's just a waste of time and energy. Like,
Exactly. Yeah. And it's honestly probably hurting your brand more than helping your brand.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, here comes the bonus question. On the topic of traveling, well, if you were stuck on a desert island, 3 things that you would bring with you, and what are they, and why would you bring them?
Is there a chance to get off the desert island?
Let's just say that you're going to be stuck there for a while, and
Okay.
eventually, like Tom Hanks in that movie, right? Like some container ship will pass by him and pick you up.
I mean, I think you got to say like a pot, a flint, and a knife
Okay,
because you can at least make a fire and like boil some water and keep yourself alive. And you can at least cook some food using the pot as well.
fantastic,
And you can start
fantastic.
your fire with your flint and your knife. Maybe that's very conservative or like realistic answer, but that's a strict survival response.
That's a great answer. Like I would cringe if you would have said like, oh, my iPad and 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 my Netflix subscription or some nonsense like that, right? Or
I mean, I'm a little like city, so I almost said my tent, but I think a pot might be more important than the tent.
absolutely, absolutely, man. Kenny, this has been a great conversation, man. So thanks so much for coming on the show and for sharing your expertise and experience with the listeners. So please, quick intro to yourself and how folks out there can get in touch with you.
Yeah, I'm Kenny Ridgell with Ridge Media. Our website is ridgemediallc.com. Go on there, check out our case study, follow us on social media. Promise not to post random stuff that doesn't is not relevant to you. And feel free to reach out. We always offer a free brand audit. We're happy to meet with you, just brainstorm, get ideas out there. A lot of that comes from just like my passion and energy for marketing as a whole. Not looking to just basically make money everywhere we go. And so we want to share ideas, create value, and hopefully make new relationships. Look forward to hearing from you.
Fantastic, fantastic. So once again, Kenny, thanks for coming on and take care, stay safe, and talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, man.
All right, bye for now.